Mikel Arteta just tore up his own tactical blueprint, and the result is a brand of football that is dismantling the Premier League. He has unlocked a tactics that defies all conventional defending. Stick to the very end to discover the single most important change that made this shocking transformation possible. It did not begin with a roar inside the Emirates, but with a quiet defiance in the mind of Mikel Arteta, a refusal to repeat the caution that once made Arsenal predictable. He had grown tired of watching his side dominate possession only to retreat from risk, tired of hearing the word control used as both a compliment and an accusation. Control without courage was no longer enough. So, instead of tightening the grip, he loosened it in the most deliberate way possible, not by abandoning structure, but by bending it until it became something alive and reactive. And it all started with a simple question whispered to his players in training. What happens if we stop fearing the chaos we create? Martin Zubimendi became the quiet answer. His arrival didn't just fill a gap, it rewired the rhythm of Arsenal's heartbeat. With one-touch passes, he stitched invisible lines across the pitch, moving the ball faster than opposition midfields could track. He didn't always demand possession. Sometimes, he demanded faith. Faith from William Saliba to push a pass between two pressing forwards. Faith from Martin Odegaard to take the ball on the half-turn under pressure. Faith from Bukayo Saka to run into space before the ball was even played. This was not recklessness. This was calculated exposure. Like a general deliberately thinning one line to lure the enemy in, knowing reinforcements were already racing into the blind spot. Declan Rice became the enforcer of this new philosophy. No longer chained to a single position, he drifted left, right, forward, breathing life into transitions that Arsenal once hesitated to make. When the ball was lost, he did not jog back into shape. He hunted. 10 yards disappeared beneath his boots in a heartbeat, lungs burning as he cut off counterattacks before they started. And when possession returned, there was no pause. No moment to reset, just instant acceleration, the ball moving through Zubimendi or Jurrien Timber. The attack snapping back like a rubber band released at full stretch. What unsettled opponents most was the unpredictability of height and positioning. The midfield box narrowed one moment, then split like an opening jaw the next. Kai Havertz drifted into the half spaces. Fabio Vieira floated between lines like a shadow. Odegaard refused to remain in traditional playmaker zones. Sometimes he dropped beside Rice, sometimes he arrived like a ghost inside the box. Arteta didn't want patterns. He wanted relationships. Passes, not memorized, but understood. Players began to respond not to rigid instructions, but to each other's breathing, their movements like instinct. First touches became weapons. Saliba no longer took 2 or 3 seconds to settle the ball. His first touch broke lines. His second touch often did not exist. The pass was already gone, fizzing into Odegaard's feet, and with a bounce, it was gone again, into the path of Saka, who was already sprinting. Arsenal stopped waiting. They started ambushing, but what changed most was how they baited danger. Takehiro Tomiyasu, Gabriel Magalhaes, and Timber would drop the ball to David Raya, hold it a fraction longer than comfortable, force the press to bite. Opposition forwards, tempted by the illusion of vulnerability, lunged. That was when Zubimendi slipped between them like smoke, receiving on the turn, feeding Rice, who was already pivoting to launch forward. Risk was no longer the enemy, it was the catalyst. And at the heart of it all was Riccardo Calafiori, the chaos artist. He did not walk along the touchline like a traditional fullback. He wandered into midfield as if drawn by gravity only he could feel. One moment, he was beside Rice. The next, gliding past a striker, daring them to follow him into no man's land. His presence added a layer of unpredictability that could not be planned for. Calafiori did not protect order. He disrupted it for Arsenal's benefit. Saka, once chained to the right wing, became a shapeshifter, sometimes hugging the touchline, sometimes ghosting inwards to join Gabriel Jesus or Leandro Trossard. He began receiving the ball on the defender's blind shoulder. His runs became more vertical, less cautious. He no longer waited for support. He attacked the gap before it truly existed. And when he lost the ball, which he often did by design, the rest defense clamped around the opposition like jaws. Within seconds, Rice or Zubimendi had stolen it back, and Saka was off again, this time with even fewer obstacles. The Emirates crowd began to notice it. Against bigger sides, matches no longer swung like pendulums based on momentum alone. Arsenal could slow the tempo to a heartbeat, then accelerate it without warning. Against Newcastle, control was not passive. It was a clenched fist waiting to strike. A single regained ball saw 3 passes executed in less than 3 seconds. Zubimendi to Rice. Rice to Timber. Timber into Saka goal. The speed wasn't only physical, it was psychological. Arteta rarely shouted now. He observed, because his players were no longer soldiers following commands. They were co-authors of chaos. Gabriel Heinz's influence could be felt. Risk was not abandonment of principles, but the evolution of them. If superiority is real, he believed, then risk only reveals it faster. Arsenal became more than a system. They became a storm, structured at the center, unpredictable at the edges, always moving, always pressing, always believing that control and danger could exist in the same breath. And in those moments when the ball rested briefly at Odegaard's feet and the stadium held its breath, you could feel it. This was not the Arsenal that feared losing. This was the Arsenal that refused to play safe anymore. But this transformation did not come from chaos alone. Behind every daring pass and every high press was a structure layered beneath the madness. Mikel Arteta knew that freedom without foundation collapses. So while the players roamed, the geometry of the pitch remained sacred. When Calafiori surged into midfield, Gabriel held his ground wider than usual. When Saka drifted closer to Gabriel Jesus, the opposite flank widened through Ben White or Timber. They no longer occupied zones. They balanced them, like tightrope walkers, adjusting their weight to maintain tension without falling. The most dramatic shift was psychological. Arsenal no longer feared losing the ball. Instead, they feared hesitating. They embraced the idea that losing it in the right area was not failure, it was bait. And in these moments of deliberate loss, Declan Rice became the hunter. His triggers were invisible to spectators, but clear to teammates. First touch, too heavy, back turned, eyes dropped to the ball, and Rice would pounce, stealing possession and turning defense into a weapon. The crowd learned to cheer even the tackles that didn't win the ball, because they knew the attempt itself was part of the harm. Gabriel Jesus, so often questioned for his goal tally, became something more important, the disruptor of defenders' rhythm. He would drop into midfield, drag center backs with him, twist and shield the ball like a street fighter protecting a secret. And while 3 defenders swarmed him, Odegaard would arrive unmarked, his first touch spinning away from pressure, his second threading the impossible pass. This was not traditional, no. 9 football. It was controlled distortion. Martin Odegaard became the conductor of this unpredictable orchestra. His feet danced between spaces, but his eyes stayed calm. He no longer waited for the game to open, he forced it open. Sometimes he drifted left to combine with Trossard, other times he arrived late on the right, using Saka's decoys to enter unnoticed. His leadership was quiet but absolute. When the tempo slowed too much, he would drive the ball with the outside of his boot just to spark movement. When panic threatened to spread, he would hold it, turn, and remind everyone that control still lived within the chaos. It was in matches against Manchester City and Liverpool where the transformation revealed its bones. Instead of retreating into deep blocks, Arsenal invited the press in, not carelessly, but with traps disguised as weakness. Raya would delay, Rice would drop, Zubimendi would angle his body sideways, selling the illusion of danger. Then, a flick, a one-touch bounce to Odegaard, a third-man run from Rice, a sprint from Saka. Suddenly the press was behind them, and Arsenal were sprinting into vacated grass with predatory intent. Even in failure, there was clarity. When a pass went astray, no one threw up their hands. Instead, 2 or 3 players swarmed, overpowering the receiver. Arteta did not want perfection. He wanted persistence. Not flawless football, but fearless football. And that subtle difference changed everything. But this evolution demanded something deeper: trust. Trust that William Saliba would not lose the ball, lingering on the edge of his own box. Trust that Zubimendi could turn with his back to goal under pressure. Trust that if Saka failed to beat his man, Rice would already be accelerating to clean the mess. Trust that the risk, even if it ended in a counterattack, was worth taking, because the alternative safety no longer belonged in Arsenal's vocabulary. Ricardo Calafiori's unpredictable movement forced teams to question their shape. When he floated into midfield beside Zubimendi, opposition wingers hesitated, mark him, or stay wide. When they marked him, White advanced on the right. When they didn't, Calafiori carried the ball straight into the heart of the pitch, daring someone to step out of line. Arteta loved it, not because it was reckless, but because it made defending against Arsenal feel like trying to catch smoke. And then there was urgency, not in running, but in thinking. The moment Arsenal recovered the ball, everything accelerated. No retreat, no recycling. Zubimendi's first thought was vertical. Timber's first touch was forward. Trossard made diagonal runs between fullback and center back before the opposition even reset their line. Goals began arriving not from elaborate build-ups, but from three-pass combinations born from regained possession. Like Rice snapping into a tackle, Zubimendi scooping the ball forward instantly, and Saka finishing before defenses breathed. Even substitutes understood the script. Fabio Vieira, Emile Smith-Rowe, Reece Nelson all entered with the same purpose: maintain the storm. Some brought finesse, some brought pace, others aggression. None slowed the tide. Arteta no longer made safe substitutions to protect leads, he injected fire to extend them. What makes this Arsenal different is not only that they attack faster, but that they believe in consequence. They accept that risk might lead to punishment, but they've chosen to live with that fear rather than be defined by it. They would rather die chasing victory than survive playing not to lose. You could see it in the way Rice roars after winning a second ball, or the way Odegaard clenches his fist when a press forces a throw-in. This is a team that no longer hopes to win. It expects to. Arteta himself has changed too. He no longer prowls the touchline like a storm trapped in a suit. Now he observes, intervening only when necessary. His trust is visible, his restraint intentional. Because he knows this version of Arsenal is no longer a reflection of his control, but of his evolution. He gave them structure. Now he has given them permission to break it. And so Arsenal stand in a moment where fate is no longer something they wait for. It is something they chase. Every first touch, every tackle, every risk taken is a small rebellion against the past. They no longer play with the handbrake half lifted. They drive with the engine roaring, tires screeching, daring the road to break before they do. Whether it ends in glory or heartbreak does not matter yet. What matters is that Arsenal, under Mikel Arteta, no longer fear the price of risk. They have embraced it. And in doing so, they have become something far more dangerous than a disciplined team. They have become a team unafraid to be the protagonist. Tell us if Arteta's tactical shift makes Arsenal true title contenders. Explain which player has benefited the most from this new system. Let us know which team has been the most confused by this new style of play. Share your thoughts in the comments and follow for more elite tactical analysis.